everyone. Welcome back, and hello to all our fans over in YouTube land. Joining me today, as I said in the intro, is Mr. Chris Koske. He is the VP of Sales and Marketing over at Edel Golf. Chris, it's nice to speak with you again.
Oh, nice to be on, and always good to talk to you.
So we've got a lot of just exciting stuff to talk about. I've been playing around with the new Edel wedges, but before we get there,
Yes.
because there's a lot to talk about there for folks who might not know the name of Chris Koske, why don't you let us know a little bit about what you do over at Edel?
Yeah, so a little bit of everything, I'd say, and I think that's just typical of a small company. But I came on board in September to lead sales and marketing, and just help grow the company. And you know, traditionally the company hasn't done a lot of marketing. Of course, I've got a fairly extensive background there, so just bring my skills to the table and help grow the company. It's been a lot of fun so far.
That's awesome. And the company itself is gaining a lot of notoriety for a lot of good reasons. I mean, obviously Edel's known for a lot of good things, including putters. They, obviously the single length irons, wedges, among all things. Do you have a favorite section of what you guys do? I've always wanted to ask someone that.
Yeah,
Or is it like a children thing?
I've been a putter guy. I mean, almost my whole career, and so I naturally lean that way. But our new wedges are just so ridiculously good that my affinity is switching quickly right now.
Yeah, and I don't blame you at all. I mean, these wedges are absolutely incredible. And so let's dive into it. I mean, you and I spoke, I don't know, probably a month and a half ago now.
Right.
Time is just kind of melding together.
Yeah.
And you gave me a little bit of a preview of the wedges. I have the chance to, try one out. And holy cow, dude. Like, these are just absolutely insane. And innovation doesn't even do it justice. I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit, like, what's the headline about these new?
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned innovation because it's become this semi-generic term in the golf industry. And of course, I grew up at Callaway and spent a lot of time there. 11 years working for them, and there was always this kind of mantra that was chased, and it was something that Mr. Callaway put in place. Harvard Business Review. Did some case studies on it, and it was always called DSPD, and it meant demonstrably superior and pleasingly different. And in the wedge category, demonstrably superior has always been so hard to chase after, unless you were kind of the elite of the elite, because you were looking at grind changes, different shapes that people thought maybe like a high toe would be great for everybody. But if you look at our wedges and how they perform with weight in different places, you'll learn that maybe that wasn't for everybody. And so for the first time to see a wedge that's truly demonstrably superior because of the adjustability it has, just makes it amazing and fun. And so for those of you that don't know the story behind it, we've got three interchangeable weights on the back of the wedge, two 2 grams and one 8 gram. And the 8 grammer is kind of our flux capacitor. And you can move that thing around from heel to the center to the toe. And depending on your swing, you can dial in the wedge for your swing. So it's not only the most fittable wedge because of the robust fitting system that we have and the aspect of being able to change the head, but I mean, you can really take it out and really address it to your game. If you have a flop shot that you like to play with your highest lofted club, then maybe put that toe, the heavy weight out in the toe, and it'll just create a layback force and this kind of steering force that's going to keep that face open longer through impact. So it just gives you the ability to kind of finesse whatever shot you want out of your wedges, and it's just the feedback we've been getting is unreal.
Well, and I think that's really, as we know, the main point of wedges, where you can do so many different things with a well-fit wedge. And to go back a little bit to something that you mentioned, because even when we talked about the preview a little bit, the fact that these wedges are fit to your swing, I mean, you guys take this to another level. It's the weighting that you just described, and in your early feedback, because you work with tour pros, you've
Hmm.
worked with some really good players and average players.
Yeah.
What's some of the feedback you get right now where that weight lands per player?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of mind blowing, and seeing the differences because it's not like, oh, good players put it in one position and bad players put it in the other. It's really swing dependent, and so David has built a lot of his knowledge and fitting around biomechanics and working with his good friend Mike Adams, and we worked with a guy named Mike Duffy, who's a biomechanist at Penn State, in order to try and figure out what are the correlations that we're seeing in the test numbers. And so what we're seeing is, for the most part, and it's not a hard and fast rule, but let's call it 9 out of 10, is if you're a steeper golfer with a weaker grip, you may want that heavy weight in the heel to help you close the face a little bit. And if you're more of a sweeper or picker of the ball, with a strong grip, then you move it out to the toe. Heath Slocum was in the other day, and he was just kind of sitting around with David and watching another good player get fit, and saw the guy. I think he increased his ball speed like 5 miles per hour on a 75-yard shot, just by changing the weight. It just moved it moved the impact to the center of the face, and all of a sudden he started catching things flush and spinning it more, and the launch angle went down. And Heath looks at David and is like, "What in the world just happened? Like, like this shouldn't happen." Um, and then another one, I was down at the office, and Inji Chun was in, two-time LPGA major winner, and when I say robot hitting wedges, I mean she is just dead straight every single time. It was so cool to watch. And when she's offline, it's like a yard or two. And then when you switch the weight from center to heel, we see a 10% increase in backspin. And it was like a half yard further to the left, which was like perfect for her. I mean, so, for some people, it's massive differences, but for some, it's really kind of, aim small, miss small, just fine tuning the tools of their trade. And it's just been cool to watch people who have been hitting golf clubs and have been fit to the nth degree their entire lives have an eye-opening moment, because that doesn't happen very often.
I would agree with that. And as somebody who has tried many different types of wedges over the years, I mean, this is the first time, and I mean this sincerely, this is the first time that I actually felt I had complete control over the performance of this golf club.
Yeah,
It was incredible.
yeah.
I took it out to the course the other day just to kind of play around with it because finally we got some decent weather here in Chicagoland where I can actually go out and do that. And just tinkering like where the normal golfer wouldn't do this, but I was moving the weight around. I was just kind of seeing things. I had my little ball launch monitor there, and everything you just mentioned that those pros saw, I noticed differences as well. It's incredible, just a small change like that, how much that could change your.
Yeah, I mean, the success stories for us are starting to pile in, like emails and social. People are like, "Oh, this is the best wedge I've ever hit." But the other day at a club here in Colorado, we had a little demo day, or a fitting day, if you will, where David was up here, and in the 2 days that we had it, we sold 40 wedges, which that doesn't happen at demo days, right? Like, no matter
Right.
how many
No.
appointments you have, 40 wedges is just crazy. And so I'm getting texts as it's going, and he's just like, "Yep, yep, we just hit 40." I'm like, "You're kidding me." So and
Wow.
that's without any kind of diagnostic equipment. People feel it and see it on the range immediately. Um, you know, if you're going through the full fit, having diagnostic equipment like a TrackMan, flight scope, whatever it be, will obviously improve that experience. But man, it's just so visible right away. It's cool.
It really is, and you can feel it in your hands. You can feel it, through the shot. Depending, so I actually got the best performance for my for the wedge that I was trying with the weight towards the heel,
Hmm.
and it was something that I wasn't expecting. And I've got the T grind, and I kind of want to transition a little bit into the different types of options of grinds and whatnot that you have available because you have many.
Hmm.
But it's that little element that you normally wouldn't even think about until it's an option for you to change. And now I've got that thing there, and now you know listeners and viewers are going to get on me for this, but I've not been fit for them just yet. But based on my amateur capabilities there, Chris, I was
Hmm.
able to figure something out that worked a lot for me.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's just fun to be able to play with clubs. If you're a club geek and you've never been able to play around with a wedge before outside of like putting it on a grinding wheel in your garage, maybe. You've got the chance for the first time here. And it's funny as we launched it. I always I've been in every forum. I read just about everything on social media about what people are saying about the products that I've launched in my career, um, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, a lot of clubs have weights." I'm like, yeah, a lot of clubs have weights for like swing weight purposes and things like that. But to have an adjustable weighted wedge is just really cool to see. And we kind of stumbled upon it a little bit. Um, it just in trial and error and trying to move CG around. And what we found is even with this 8 gram weight moving, we are barely moving CG. It might be the width of a groove that we're moving it. Um, but the one thing, and I think that's why a lot of golf companies haven't done it yet, because in an engineering setting, when you're designing from collision backwards, which is the way a lot of major OEMs design golf clubs, um, you're looking at CG and saying, "Oh, that can't possibly move that." But in reality, it's creating this steering force in the swing that's actually changing the delivery of the golf club. And I think David, with 25-year PGA member, really started as an instructor, and then kind of as an inventor, having those two things meld. We always like to say that we design golf clubs from the player backwards instead of from the golf club forwards, if that makes sense. So it's cool how we
It does make
mix
sense, and
those technologies.
and it's funny, just a little intricacy like that, it feels like it makes a world of difference. It's a very customer based model
Mhm.
from my understanding of what you're
Yeah.
explaining.
And I'd say almost to a fault in the history of the company. And I always like to tell David, I was like, you did a lot of this the hard way. And he's always had this mantra of, hey, we're gonna make golfers better. We're not in this just to make money. We want to make people better players, and he doesn't want any outliers. And we talk about no outliers as kind of this north star for us, is that if we've got enough fitting options and enough options from a SKU standpoint to eliminate all the outliers, then we're doing our jobs. Now, bringing that to market and commercializing that and being successful is a lot more difficult. And so, those are the things that we're trying to iron out as we move forward. But if we can fit everybody into our clubs, we're going to be happy at the end of the day.
I would say that's a pretty good goal there. So let's transition a little bit to the different types of grinds that you have available, because there are a lot of different options here. Four different
Yep.
grinds. Am I correct on
Yep.
that? And so maybe talk to us a little bit about what grind, because it basically based on shallowness or steepness of.
Yeah, for the most part. There's also a utility aspect that I think gets overlooked in fittings as well. So, one of the ways that we're able to capture that a little bit more in our fitting system that we send out to our partners, we've got 12 interchangeable heads and 16 shafts. And most people would be like, that is absolutely crazy. So in 50, 54, and 58, each come in 4 grinds. They come in what we call the D, the V, the T, and the C. So just to talk a little bit about each one. C is your kind of standard cambered grind, big heel relief, big toe relief. It gives you the ability to open up the club quite a bit, and just have some versatility. So a lot of people would like that in their highest lofted clubs, but really kind of anywhere through the bag. I think the thing that's a little bit unique about all of our wedges and all of our grinds is that we do have a little bit wider soles. It's funny. Roger Cleveland was telling me one time, and he loved to use this, but he said the one thing or the two things that people need more in life are religion and bounce on their wedge. And he used to say it constantly. And so now I'm looking at all these wedges and that we've got, and they got a little wider soles and a little bit more bounce to them. And I always just think about that line from Roger. But the next grind down from the C grind is the T grind. It's a triple sole, so kind of some relief on the leading edge. I'd say it's probably the most versatile overall of all the grinds. You can open it up. You can be a little steep into it. You can be a picker of it. Probably, I'd say, our all-purpose grind. Down from there, the V grind, a little bit of a wider sole, great for diggers, great for full shots. What we've seen a lot of people doing is maybe doing a T or a C in their high lofts and then doing a V in their 48, 50, 54, somewhere down in that range. If they tend to hit fuller shots with it, the V is just a phenomenal wedge there. And then the D, which is the dual sole. Other companies have it called like a U grind, where it's got that little dip. So you've got your initial bounce and your secondary bounce to really help you get through the ground. That would be, obviously named for diggers of the ball. People joke a little bit when you see like the massive pelt divots. It looks like an excavator came through the driving range. Just hand them the D grind and let them go at it. And probably some truth to that. Yeah, I mean, you can get away with a lot with that wedge. Just kind of stick it in the ground and go. So um, you can play that out. The different turf
Yeah, there's a lot
conditions.
of good
Yeah,
options
and
there.
different turf conditions as well. Like, I live in the Denver area. With the amount of rain we've been getting recently, I could probably use something a little bit more in that vein. But it's so many elements to the grind and how it interacts with the turf.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is just kind of experimenting maybe a little bit. Again, go get fit,
Hmm.
everyone, and certainly go out to edelgolf.com and you can learn about not only how they can help you with that experience, but also you can view their entire catalog of what they have to offer. An additional feature that I think has remained somewhat consistent, correct me if I'm
Sure.
wrong, Chris, is the actual
Yeah.
face. It's a pretty unique spin on that too.
Yeah, we've got elongated grooves out covering nearly the entire face, and it's been a signature for Adele, for the last 9, 10 years, since the original hand ground wedges launched. And we've seen a lot of companies, whether they're following or just bringing it to market as well, go that route. You go into any retail shop or fitter nowadays, and you're going to see probably 40, 50% of the wedges are going to have full face grooves now. And it's something that the team, Neil and David are really proud of leading and doing things a little different and out of the box. But it's funny. In my past life, I had some wedges made that never made it to market that way. And I was playing in a charity tournament in LA at 102 yards out. And I'll never forget this shot because the caddy looked at me like, hit that flush. I didn't hit it flush at all. I hit it far off the toe. I hit it to about a foot. And I just picked up the wedge, handed it to caddy, and I said, "Look at that ball mark." And it was so far out of the toe, it would have missed every conventional wedge's grooves. But having grooves out there stopped it. And so, when I had done research in the past, and when I talk to people about it now, if you got that little downhill chip that you're trying to deaden off the toe, you can do that and get a little spin on it still. And so, it just gives you the ability to hit more shots, and that's what it's all about. It's just Neil likes to call it. Neil's our head of R&D, Neil Oster. He always just likes to say it's just a pure shot maker's wedge, and if you want to be a shot maker, that's what you got to play. He's got a cool matter of fact way about him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, well, at least in my experience, I totally relate with what you're saying. I mean, not calling myself a shot maker by any means, and people who have played with me know that's not the case. But the fact is that you have so much versatility around the greens, regardless of whatever type of shot you want to play. And if there's ever a club that needs to really be your utility club,
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people talk about the thing people hit off the tee. I would say it's the wedge, and this wedge is definitely in that category.
Yeah, I mean, just so many different locations that you're trying to either escape from, or even if you don't have to do that, and you're a good player and you're down the middle, it just gives you the ability to kind of fine tune your weapons, really.
Yeah, and that's a perfect thing, a perfect way to describe it. You know, these things can be dangerous. I mean, if you're going to go out And they call them scoring clubs for a reason, folks. And so go out, edelgolf.com, take a look at the Edel wedges for 2021. Everything that Chris has just been explaining to us today, I can tell you firsthand, I've experienced the same thing. It is absolutely incredible. It's one of the most innovative things. I know that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but it really is one of the most innovative things that I've seen in wedge design in a very long time. Chris, before we let you go here, I like to ask this question to all my guests who talk about a new product. What excites you the most about it? And what's something, it's kind of a two-parter, and what's something that people really need to pay close attention to?
In regards to the wedge, or
Yes, well, yeah, absolutely. What do people really, when they take a look at this, what do they need to pay the closest attention to in your mind?
well, I think with any product, I think you got to pay attention to feel, and the way things feel is hard to R&D. It's such a subjective thing. I've spent years and years of my career trying to explain feel to people, and have people explain feel to me. And yeah, I'll never forget conversations with Phil Mickelson where he swore a black painted insert was firmer than a white painted insert in a putter. And we can do Shore D testing and know exactly how hard and how soft these things are. But for whatever reason, there was a perception there of feel, and so when we launch a new forged wedge, and you have the ability to move the weight around. Not only do you feel it when you first pick it up and waggle it, you have the ability to feel it a lot in the transition of your swing. Some people, when the weight is in the incorrect position, it's almost like a gag effect. As soon as you start your transition, it's like, oh, that's not good. And then when you get it in the right position, it feels like it just slots and everything is just working harmoniously. And then lastly, because it did slot to your kind of natural swing for your body, you're hitting it more flush, and so you're getting that feel at impact that is priceless. It's the feel that keeps us all coming back when you hit that shot, right in the center and it's flush. That's an amazing feeling for golfers, and so um, yeah, really, really all aspects of the feel of the club and being able to watch people is my favorite part of launching any product, is watching people interact with it. And and when people feel those differences and that comes to reality, when perception comes to reality for them, not only is it rewarding, but it's just cool. It's just fun to see.
Yeah, I totally hear you, and you described that very well. That feeling that always brings us back. That's the
Yeah.
truth right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Koske, he's over at Edel Golf. He's the VP of Sales and Marketing. Go out to edelgolf.com right now. As soon as you're done listening to this, go out there and take a look at everything they have to offer, including this incredible new wedge for 2021. Chris, thanks so much for coming on. We will have you back on here momentarily, and we'll be sure to get some additional feedback from everything that you're experiencing
Yeah,
with
no,
this new
I'd
wedge.
love to share the stories, and thanks for having me on. I'm happy to come back on anytime. It was great.